Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cranked and Ranked. Back again after a week off. Hopefully, nobody missed us too much out there. But we're here and we're ready to rank things that we cranked. I am Steven, aka Old Head. With me, as always, Mr. Eddie Sparxx. Hello, sir.
Sup?
Sup? Yeah. So to be completely honest, like it's rough for me when we don't see each other for a week. I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? So
I've become a part of your life, dude.
I know, in a big way. And so I'm glad we're back doing this again. And we're doing another fun one because we're not focusing on a band discography this week, as you can see on the title of the video, we're going to be doing our top 10 albums from 1977, a year before I was born. And as usual, when we do these year episodes, I always try to point out that these are our favorite albums from 1977, not the best albums from 1977. So, yeah. I think I've said this a million times. It always annoys me when one dude does a list and like, these are the best of this. And I'm like, no, those are your favorites.
Yeah.
Like that's ridiculous. We're not doing this podcast because we think we're right about everything. We just think that we're mildly amusing. Some of you think so.
Even though we are.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to be doing top 10 of 1977. And so this is interesting because, it's a year before I was born, but it was like, what? 21 years before you were born?
Yeah.
1
year after my mother was born.
Oh yeah. Cause I'm old enough to be your father. All right, whippersnapper. We're doing a top 10. We used to do top 5s and then throw in some honorable mentions, but I almost feel like it's more fun just to rank 10 and then just call it right there. Because that way you get more albums.
Yeah,
and you get
I like that.
It's more important, the albums we're talking about, because they're actually ranked in the order that we like them and not just some thrown in at the end just to mention them.
Yeah.
And 77 is an interesting year for me. Like honestly, there was already a whole lot of albums that I really like, some of which I didn't even make my top 10. And some that some people would think are absolute classics that I've completely left out of my top 10, just because these are my favorites. And it's I'm being honest with everybody out there. So I guess let's jump into it. I mean, what I don't know. It's so weird. We took a week off and now I'm all like, how do we do this again?
Yeah.
It's so weird, but let's do it. As usual, I throw it over to Edward Sparxx to kick us off with his number 10 album from 1977.
Cool. So my number 10 pick for 1977 is Sin After Sin by Judas Priest.
Okay, cool.
So my placings of Judas Priest's 70s output on our Judas Priest episodes, go check them out if you haven't seen them already. That's a little
we did a fucking 3-parter, right? Of Judas Priest.
That one was huge. Yeah.
And I think I annoyed some people because I'm not a fan, and it was my first time listening to their whole discography. And I was very just like, some of their stuff's great, and some of it I'm just like, woo, all right.
Yeah. If you're a listener who's only come online recently with the show, we have like an entire at least 6 hours of just Priest talk, and there's a lot of hot takes in there. So if you want some spicy Priest, check those out. But,
That's a spicy priest. All right.
So yeah, my placings of them, the 70s stuff, was kind of controversial compared to the albums I put above them, not to give anything away, but I recognize good music regardless, and this is a damn good 70s early metal album.
Yeah.
Like it's got a couple moments showing off their like softer side, but it also has a song on it that Slayer would go on to cover 11 years later with Dissident Aggressor. So, you know,
Yeah.
you got the best of both worlds in that regard. You know, opening with Sinner, absolute tune. Diamonds and Rust is a classic. Starbreaker has such a good chorus. Cool songs, but the fact I vibe with so much other stuff from this year above it, paired with my kind of complicated relationship with Judas Priest, which I talk about in the Priest ranking, it made this my number 10 pick. But because I have loved it so much in the past, and I still visit what I think are the best songs from it. I mean, it's got some strong stuff on it.
Yeah, I remember it being one. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's probably the best produced of their 70s output, if like maybe excluding Hellbent for Leather or / Killing Machine, the same album. I think this is the best produced of their 70s stuff.
Yeah, I just remember, I think that one was lower in my list, if I remember right, Sin After Sin.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That's a ranking we did, and I know the ones that were my favorites, and I've never looked back on any of the other ones. I'm just like, there's the few in there that I was like, these are cool, and then the rest of them I'm like, nah, that's it's not really for me. I don't know what it is that doesn't click with me with a lot of Priest. But I mean, it is what it is, I guess. Clearly this album is not in my list.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, whatever. And so I actually, just for the benefit of the viewers on the YouTube side of things, apologies for listeners, but if you choose to listen to this as a podcast, I respect you. But I'm gonna throw a few little things in for people watching on YouTube. I brought my vinyl copies of every one of these albums except for two, because there are two of these. There are two that I don't yet have on vinyl. One of which, my number 10, I'm going to talk about. It's not very. You don't run across this album very cheap, so I haven't picked it up yet. But my number 10 is the album Queens of Noise by the Runaways, and it might be my favorite Runaways albums. I mean, because they did two with the original lineup of the group, and then I think they did two more after Sherry Curry left, which had more Joan Jett and a little bit of Lita Ford singing on it. But Queens of Noise, I mean, even on Queens of Noise, it's got a lot of Joan Jett vocals on it. But I really like this album because the vibe of it and the sound of it, like, it's pretty heavy. Like, you know, a lot of people, you say the Runaways and they know Cherry Bomb off the first album, which is a very sort of, it's 70s pop rock kind of stuff. They were a little heavier than that, but I feel like with Queens of Noise, the actual sonic representation of it is also very heavy. Like, I feel like they kind of got it right. And there's a lot of cool songs on it. And overall, yeah, it probably is the best. Like, if I was going to point somebody to the Runaways, I'm all like, well, you know, if you've heard Cherry Bomb, you know, that first album's fine. Just, you know, go get to Queens of Noise, because it's a beefier album, and I like that in every, you know.
Yeah.
But it's at my number 10 just because, like, as much as I enjoy this album, out of all the 10 that I picked, this was the one that has the most songs where I go, it's not really that great of a song. I'm more just I'm more just into the vibe of the album. It's got, like, half the songs I think are pretty strong and are cool, and then there's other ones that I kind of go, all right, well, you know, it's a song, I guess. Honestly, the what I think is one of the weakest songs is the song Queens of Noise, which starts the album off. And it wasn't written by any of the members of the Runaways. It was like another person, an outside songwriter that wrote that for them.
Right.
But it's, I mean, it's fine. It's an iconic song for them, but I think where the album goes from there, it actually gets better, in my opinion. But yeah, not a lot to say about it. If you're into the Runaways, and if you want to hear some cool heavy 70s rock, with female vocalists played entirely by women, which was, I guess, in 1977, like that was a big deal. Like were there, I'm trying to think of before them a rock band that was entirely made up of women, because you had women in rock bands, you had women guitar players, but were they indeed the first full rock band fully female? I feel like they were. I might be wrong, but somebody out there in the YouTube world, put a comment in there if I'm wrong, if there was one before them. But they were the first significant one, I would think.
Yeah. While it's on my mind, have you ever heard that album by the Shags?
No.
It's like one of the worst albums like ever made. But
is it old?
It's like it's got to be late 60s, early 70s. But I think I remember hearing the story about it. I think it's three girls.
Uh-huh.
And I think they had like rich parents or some shit. I can't remember the specifics of the story, but like no one is on time or key at all throughout the whole fucking thing. And
that's
it's
awesome.
Like, it's a whole album. I think Kurt Cobain even said it was one of his biggest influences, which,
oh my God, is
like, it's one of those things that adds up, but it's something. It's a sight to behold.
The Shags.
Yeah.
Okay. clearly they're British, right? Because I mean,
I don't know. I think it's spelled SHAGGS. I'm really not sure. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but I'm pretty sure it's like regarded as one of the worst recorded things ever.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out. The Shags.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my
female.
That's my number 10. Queens of Noise. Move on to your number 9.
Cool. So my number 9 is Street Survivors by Lynyrd Skynyrd.
All right.
So this is kind of like a cursed album retrospectively. Like if you look at the album art and what would happen 3 days after it was released, with the plane crash and all that, it's they even re-released it with a new cover so as to not be so fucking scarily.
Did they also change the name to Street Not Everybody Survives? Too soon? Is it too soon?
I mean, it's been like fucking 40 years now. But yeah, it's the last Skynyrd album recorded with original members, Ronnie Van Zant, and that but it's got some great songs on it. You got What's Your Name, That Smell, I Know a Little, like just some. It's really good. I know you're not the biggest like southern rock country guy, but
no.
When it comes down to it, Lynyrd Skynyrd, I mean, they do it, and they do it really well, and they yeah. I mean, I gotta say, delving into their individual albums has been kind of a recent affair for me. I've always been kind of a greatest hits guy when it came to Skynyrd.
Yeah.
But like, I delved into their first album the other day, and then I thought, oh shit, actually, like a lot of these deep cuts are kind of fire. And now I'm literally looking at an album where they're on fire.
I mean, really, and, they've kind of have become like the Beatles of Southern rock. Like if anyone says Southern rock, like that's the whatever you call it, the gold standard, I guess,
Yeah. They're the one that people's minds jump to,
Yeah.
yeah, I just like the flavor of Southern rock. I was kind of raised on country and stuff like that. But
I
yeah,
might feel differently about it if I didn't actually live in the South and
see that's how I
grow up
feel.
knowing some people like that, and I just go, yeah, fuck these people.
Yeah, see that's how I kind of feel about kind of grime, because like I just permanently associate it with like shithead year 8 kids at the back of the bus, just spitting on grandmas as they just drive past. And
And then and over here, I'm all
yeah,
like, bring on the new Dizzy Rascal.
yeah,
That's grime, isn't it? Isn't Dizzy
yeah.
Rascal? Yeah.
Like
I like that guy.
I'll be the first to admit I had bonkers on my iPod Nano in 2009. Some people think I'm bonkers.
Yeah. Yeah. That dude's great.
Yeah,
His first, well, I mean, everything I've heard by him is great, but his first couple albums, when they came out, I was like, never heard anything like this before. Like as a hip hop
yeah.
fan, I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's fucking great. We're not talking about 19, what that would have been like 2003 or something like that when that
Yeah.
came out. But 77, we went from Leonard Skinner to Dizzy Rascal. What other podcasts will bring you that kind of transition?
Yeah. Cranked and ranked, master of tangents.
Absolutely. So let's move on. So far, our lists are different, and I'm loving this. There's only one that I'm pretty sure we're both going to mention in this list, but all the rest of them I don't really know. But going on to one I have a vinyl of with me, my number 9 is the album In Color by Cheap Trick. And I always loved the early Cheap Trick art, because it was always like they put the two really attractive guys on one side and then the other dudes on the other side. It was always like a big joke that everyone wanted to see the two hotties, and the other dudes were just like, whatever, we'll be on the back cover. But In Color is a fucking great album. The first like 4 or 5 Cheap Trick albums are just fucking great. But I'd have to say
I might as well chime in here and say it's my number 8, so that we can just talk
sweet.
right about it.
All right. So but In Color is actually, of their first 5 albums or so, In Color is actually my least favorite of theirs. And it's only because it's almost a little bit too polished, because and I guess you could even say Heaven Tonight and Dream Police, they're both very polished, but they at least feel heavier. Whereas I think the heaviness has kind of been stripped out of In Color, and it's more of like a power pop record, which they did do power pop, but I believe the emphasis was on the power until you get to the 80s, and then the emphasis on power was kind of lost for a bit. But I mean, In Color's got fucking I Want You to Want Me, which ended up being like their biggest song ever, although not the version on here though, because the version everybody seems to know is from Live at Budokan. And the one on here, it's almost like a light little pop tune, and that's pretty cute. But just like the beginning, like the Hello There going into Big Eyes, like there's some really strong tracks on here. Like Come On is great. Clock Strikes 10, like a lot of really, really great. They are like, they're great songwriters. And they just had an energy to them that like it almost felt like they were trying to outdo like every other band. Like they were one of those bands that seemed like they came onto the scene like, we want to be the biggest fucking thing around. And you can hear that ambition in their songs. So In Color is great. It's just it's when it comes to Cheap Trick, it's a little weak production wise for me. But you throw in your 2 cents.
I was just gonna say it amazes me when you have such a short album, because it's only a half hour long, but it's got so many different types of pop rock songs on here, and it just keeps changing up the flavor, but stays consistently good. And I love an album that can do that in a short span of time. I'd rather have 30 minutes of killer than 50 minutes of some tracks are better significantly than others.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. So that we did our number 9 and number 8 with Cheap Trick In Color. So it goes right back over to me, or do you have anything else to add about In Color?
Yeah, not really. Other than the fact it's just a great, good time rock and roll record.
Absolutely, I agree. So moving, staying in power pop territory, for my number 8. My number 8 is Violation from the band Stars,
Ooh.
which is the second Stars album. And just like with In Color, the heaviness of Stars is a little bit stripped out of this one. Even the main single of this one, which was Cherry Baby, is like, might as well be by a different band, except for, you hear the vocalist, but there's still some really great guitar work on here. That's the thing. I think I talked about Stars when we did the 1976 episode, because their debut album is fucking insanely good. This one's good too. It's just, might as well show the back of the dude. I don't know if I did that or not. If I'm bringing out the vinyl, let's look at the dudes. But Violation is great. It's kind of a weird album because there's parts of it that feel, and I think I read somewhere they were trying to do some kind of a concept album, but at the end of the day, when the record company and everybody got their fingers in it, they literally like mixed all the songs in the wrong order. And so like, it doesn't make much sense, but as far as I can gather, it's literally the story that like everybody wrote when they wrote concept albums, which is like, music is now illegal. It's illegal to rock now. But that album is just, Violation is just fucking fun. And every Stars album is fun. That's the thing, is that I put them really close to Cheap Trick in that they have that kind of vibe where if you want some rock and roll, but you just want it to be fun, like all these guys, Cheap Trick and Stars, Kiss, bands like that, like they all led to Poison, and all of those bands in the 80s, like, because it's a similar vibe that they would take from that. And sometimes that's, I know you feel me, because you kind of feel the same way, where sometimes you just want to like enjoy yourself and you're not really worried about musicianship or even like really well written songs. Like some stuff could be pretty much derivative of other things that were already going on, but if it's done well, then it doesn't bother me at all. And honestly, I don't think Stars necessarily has anything. I mean, the guitar work on it's fucking great and the vocals are great. But yeah, it ends up at number 8 further down the list, just because like I said, with In Color, it's when it comes to Stars, I'm going to the first Stars album. I'm not going to Violation, but I also really like Violation. So that's all I have to say about that. So we'll move on to number 7, your number 7.
Cool. So my number 7 is, sorry, I thought I had a little bit gassy there, but it changed its mind. It went back down. I'm sure we'll see him later. Oh, there he is.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. So yeah, now that I've got that out of my system, my number 7 pick is the Alice Cooper Show by
Alice Cooper.
No, Alice Cooper. So yeah, this is actually a live album, and having seen Alice Cooper live mere months before the pandemic ground live music to a halt, I can confirm that the dude still fucking rocks in his 70s.
Yeah, he does.
But one thing about Alice Cooper to me is that the material translates so fucking good in a live setting that the studio versions have a tendency to fall a teeny bit short of the sheer badassery of the live version. So like,
I feel like that's why live albums in the 70s were such a big deal, because it almost seemed like a lot of times the the studio produced albums didn't really get the sound across the way a live recording could. And funnily enough, they would do a live album and then they would go into the studio and overdub shit anyway. So it's like, maybe that's the way they should have just done albums, full stop. Just record it at a live show and then go in and fix all the little bits and mix it and put it out there. So
yeah, like this album's a collection of some of his greatest songs from the 70s performed live, with the atmosphere that truly serves the songs well enough to make you feel like you're there in that moment. Like, even down to the guitar tone. The guitar tone is so much heavier live than they captured on any of the 70s albums, because the thing is, I don't know what it is about like the production on 70s Alice Cooper, but it's, when you hear it live, it's almost like, did we jump about 10 years ahead with guitar technology to get this sound? Because it's so much bigger live. And you know, I wish, I mean, there's probably unofficial ones, but as far as I know, this is the only 70s Alice Cooper live album, and it's like, kind of wish he'd done more. But
it almost seems like the like engineers and producers just didn't know how to handle loud electric guitars. You know, some got it right, but it seemed like the number of producers that knew how to do it was pretty low. And then as the 80s moved in, I feel like everyone got a lot better at knowing how to handle them.
I think like the moment I kind of point to where there was this seismic shift on how soaring a guitar sound could be was when Boston came along. Like the guitar, like that guitar tone laid the groundwork for like the next 16 years.
And that would, I mean, and that would be 1 year after the year we're talking about, because 78 was the first Boston album.
Now that was 76. So
no fucking way it was.
Yeah, so yeah, Boston was 76.
Oh, because we haven't done 78 yet. We did 76 and we talked about Boston in the 1976 episode. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so there you go. That means
ahead of the curve.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like this is a really good live album. And I think it's probably the best recording of the 70s work, because it just serves it so well. I feel like Alice Cooper is as much a theater act as it is a band, you know. And it's awesome. It's energetic in production and performance. It fucking kills. Hell yeah.
Sweet. Some Alice Cooper in this episode. So my number 7 is probably the only one that I feel like a lot of people won't know who the fuck this is. So I'm going to have to do some kind of an explanation, like a miniature bands you should know episode in this Cranked and Ranked. My number 7 is the debut album from the band Detective.
Oh,
and here they are. There's Detective. So this is released. If you look, it's on Swan Song Records, which is Led Zeppelin's label. And they sometimes people describe this band unfairly as kind of a Led Zeppelin wannabe in certain aspects, but that's only because the vocalist occasionally sounds like Robert Plant, only he's a way better singer. And the drums are produced exactly the same way Bonham's drum, like the big sounding drums.
Yeah.
But the difference between the bands is that their songs are all about vibe. Like it's not about rock hooks or riffs or big choruses. Like there's so much music on this album that it's just kind of like you just kind of get into, go, yeah. And like and the song may not actually go anywhere, but just the vibe of what's happening in the song, it's just it's so fucking good. And the way it's produced is great. Sounds amazing. The guitar interplay is really cool because it's like I'm just spitting everywhere. I apologize. Got so excited talking about Detective. But they only did 2 albums, and as far as I know, they weren't really well received. I think some people were into them, but I think that was basically it. And I think some of the members went on to do other stuff that I don't think was even, very well known anyway after that. But this album just has such a great vibe that like you put it on and it just kind of takes you on a little journey. And I love it. It's cool. It's it's one of those bands that like I discovered them simply because I would see things about other bands from the 70s I liked doing shows with Detective, like Cheap Trick or somebody like that. I think Kiss may have also. You see the band Detective, and so usually I'll go, "Who the fuck's Detective?" And I looked them up, and I'm like, "This is cool." But yeah, it's a fun album. Their second album is not as good, but it's still great. But this first one, man, it's got such I highly recommend it if you just want to like hear some cool groovy rock music that just kind of, I mean, the easiest way to describe it is it's just a vibe. And that's why I like it. And that's why it's my number 7, Detective.
Cool. That's an obscurity even I haven't heard of. So I'll have to check that one out.
Definitely.
Cool. So that brings me to my number 6. Yeah.
6.
Cool. So my number 6 is The Grand Illusion by Styx.
Wow. This is ending up in it. I love it because we're covering a whole lot of ground here, and this is the best way that this could have turned out.
Yeah, this album to me is like the perfect cross section of progressive and accessible. So you've got all of this proggy stuff going on. I mean, the album starts like this medieval procession, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in all of these different songs, Grand Illusion, Fooling Yourself, Stars, Come Sail Away. I mean, that's an iconic song.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
It took I actually heard that song first from South Park, so it took me a long time. It took me a long time to shake away the thought of Cartman like having to sing the whole song.
He has to sing the whole song.
Yeah.
I remember
comes that one. Comes that away with me.
Yeah. It is true but it is that kind of song that like you want to get to the end of it. Like it starts off, but like the big part of the song is closer to the end. You have to make it through.
Yeah. I just it took me the longest time to stop singing it in the Cartman voice in my car. I'm sailing away. It's so good. But it was, deeper cuts like Miss America. Now this is a stomping guitar song. The riff in this is so cool. Man in the Wilderness, Castle Walls. Now Castle Walls, I actually recognize there's like a harpsichord. I was like, where have I heard that before? Come to find, I'd actually heard it it was one of the songs in the Scarface soundtrack that sampled that part of the song. And it was like one of those cool moments where I thought, yo, what? That's cool. I think
that's interesting.
I think it's She's on Fire from the Scarface soundtrack, and also GTA 3 soundtrack. But
by Scarface, you mean the game? The game Scarface?
No, I mean as
the
in
movie.
The movie. But
wow, that's interesting.
It does have a video game tie-in because GTA 3 has an 80s station on it that is literally the whole Scarface soundtrack. But,
all right.
That was always a good station on there. Flashback FM, I think it's called. But this is a really cool album that it doesn't go so far into the prog territory that it's inaccessible for kind of novice listeners to the genre, but it also still keeps all the grandeur, so all of the songs feel massive as well. And I love the artwork on this album too. Like it's such a mind fuck. And I mean the album's called The Grand Illusion, so it makes sense. But there's like a silhouette of a dude on a horse going through a forest, but the silhouette has a woman's face in it with some psychedelic, Roger Dean looking stuff in there. And I don't know who did it. I don't know how it could have been Roger Dean, but yeah, I love it. It's a cool album.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay in the proggy territory for my number 6. I don't have this one on vinyl. Eventually I'll get there, but my number 6 is Animals by Pink Floyd. And
cool.
This might be my favorite Pink Floyd album. It's hard to tell. I went through a really big Pink Floyd phase in my 20s, where I listened to like everything up until the final cut. For some reason, once Waters left, I like certain songs off of the albums they put out after that. But for the most part, it lost something. Some people would say they lost something, when Syd Barrett left, decades before or whenever, but Animals is what I guess I could say the same sort of thing that I say about the Detective album about Animals, because they're long songs and there's a vibe that goes through it. It's you got to be all in, but it feels good. Like it's almost like I remember like when I was listening to it this last time, I was trying to come up with a comparison of how it made me feel when I listened to it, and it's almost kind of like floating around in a heated pool when it's freezing outside, and just that weird, just that feeling of like it feels really good, but also kind of weird because there's the juxtaposition of the coldness and the warmth that you're now floating in. That's probably the weirdest thing I've ever said about an album, but because there is a darkness to this album, but also it's still got your really badass sort of 70s guitar leads and stuff in it. And it's just really well written. Like if you give me an album that's got several really long songs on it, most of the time, like I get kind of bored, but like there's enough of a vibe going and enough cool shit happening. And it's not, their version of proggy was never like real prog fans aren't going to look at this album and call it prog. It's not, aside from the song lengths really. But yeah, it's just a great album. And I think like it's really interesting to the trajectory of the band and their progression, because like Animals is honestly, if you really think about it, like the first album where I feel like even though they did really great songs, they still seem like they were spinning their wheels a little bit, because they went from Metal to Dark Side of the Moon to Wish You Were Here, which are 3 very unique albums. And then you get to Animals, and you can hear things in Animals that harken back to something on Wish You Were Here or something on Metal. So in that respect, like it's not really them breaking a lot of new ground except for making a bunch of long songs. But I think they did it really well. And it's a really enjoyable album for me. And that's why it's my number 6, Pink Floyd with Animals. Moving on to number 5. Yeah, that's the way numbers work, right?
Number 5. Johnny 5 is alive.
Oh, I was one, because every time I say number 5, that's what I think is Short Circuit, which is, I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid, because I'm pretty damn sure it's going to be fucking horrible if I watch it now.
I'm a sequel guy. I like the second one the best.
Oh, with the Los Locos kick your ass.
Yeah. Los Locos kick your face. Los Locos kick your balls
into outer space. Stupid as fuck, man.
It's awesome, dude.
Plus at this point, though, a white dude playing an Indian character, isn't that cancelable? Can we just cancel these movies now?
Oh shit! I didn't. I didn't know at the time it was a white dude.
As a white dude.
I haven't seen it in a while.
But you know, number one does get the bonus of having the Guttenberg in it, and I'm all about the Guttenberg. And I miss that guy. I don't know why he does. He needs to make a comeback like a lot of actors do when like they get a little older and gruffer, and all of a sudden they're doing serious roles, and you're like, "Ooh, yeah. Guttenberg's a badass." Like it's got a Guttenberg. If you're out there, from one Steve to another, if you're out there or somebody knows Steve Guttenberg, tell him that people miss him. He doesn't need to do any more Police Academy. He just come back and be the badass Guttenberg we all know that you can be. Anyway, moving on to number 5.
Cool. So my number 5 is Little Queen by Heart.
All right, cool.
So like this album, it's a complete blend of folk and hard rock, and like Heart's Led Zeppelin influence was like never a secret by any means. Like the reissue contains a cover of Stairway, but Heart took this folk meets rock thing, added their feminine touch and badass swagger to it, and made it their own. I mean, Ann Wilson, backed by Nancy Wilson,
yeah.
Like the vocals on this
I know it's kind of a duh thing to say at this point if you know 70s music, but yeah, Ann Wilson it's still an amazing singer.
Yeah.
Like yeah. She has a great voice, and just the fact that she can still, I don't know how old they are now. They're probably in their 60s. And
I think she's 70 now.
Damn, she still sounds great. I think I heard some performance of them doing. I don't remember what they did a couple years ago. It was some performance they did, and I was just like, she still got it, man.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Heart a killer, dude. Yeah, they have this way of being like absolutely beautiful over like the quiet parts. But then they could, especially Anne, can just crank up the grit whenever is needed. So it's like every now and again she'll bust out like a wail, and I'm like, oh, that's fucking awesome. But yeah, when this album rocks, it rocks, and when it folks, it takes you places, dude. Like,
what are the big hits off that one?
Barracuda is
okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. Fucking Barracuda's on this.
Yeah, Barracuda, and I think Kick It Out is on here as well. Or is that, yeah, I think it's Kick It Out. Yeah. But there's just some really cool stuff on here. Yeah. I just always end up gobsmacked when I hear this album, because I'm like, what are they gonna do next? Oh, they're going to go really Led Zeppelin-y here. Oh, that's like really. They have this aggressive edge to them that they only bust out on occasion, but when they do, it just has so much more whack. But yeah, I love it. Awesome stuff. Awesome sauce.
There's some much needed feminine energy in our show, because this is. Our show is the majority of it is a sausage fest most of the time.
we need to do Heart at some point, big time, because they've got a really interesting discography.
Yeah, and I need to do a deeper dive, because like I haven't really gotten into them, just because I've never heard a full album where the whole album kind of got me. It was always just been random songs.
Yeah.
But you know, so that's why we do these eventually, just to really get in there and soak up everything. So my number 5, ladies and gentlemen, the first ever doubling up. A band appears on my list 2 times. Cheap Trick, the debut album from Cheap Trick, which came out the same year as In Color. Like that's how much shit they had to pull off. Like they put out their debut album, and then within the same year put out their second album. But this album is fucking great. I love it because it's heavy at times, but a whole lot of it is weird. Like there's song choices that I go, this is really well written, but I don't, where did this come from? Because some of it is a little bit, it's like power pop made by really weird people. and that's why I love it. And my favorite thing, so if you go listen to this album on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever today, in my opinion, it's in the wrong order, because side B starts off the album now, because Cheap Trick apparently like it better that way. But if you look on my vinyl copy, there's side A and then there's side 1, because this band has no B side material, folks. It is all A1 material. And but yeah, this album is just like so much fun. And plus, like I understand from the perspective of, if you listen to it now and Hello Kitties starts the album off, okay, that makes sense. But Hot Love starting the album out on here, I mean, obviously it's intended for you to play it whatever order you want, but this is listed first. So I've always considered Hot Love to be the beginning of the album, and that is just a blow the fucking doors open, kind of song. Like, welcome Cheap Trick. And Cheap Trick are a band that, like you said with Alice Cooper, as much as I love like their 70s and early 80s output, watching them live, like especially in the 70s, they were fucking insane. And Robin Zander, forget about it. The dude is just like crazy good frontman. But yeah, and then I don't know. This is just one of those albums that I feel like, if you're talking about the 70s, something from Cheap Trick needs to be mentioned in the 70s, because that's some of the best shit from the 70s. Cheap Trick is there. But yeah, this is a fucking fun as fuck album. And it's my number 5, Cheap Trick. My first, I love it. The first time it's ever happened, I was like, is it ever going to happen where 2 albums from one band are going to be on a year list? But there you go. Probably one of the few, because like once you get into the 80s, bands didn't put out 2 albums in 1 year anymore. Yeah. But there you go.
I think I'm gonna have a similar situation as we get further up the list. But
okay.
But first off, my number 4, gonna venture into some kind of soft rock AOR territory.
All right.
I'm gonna hit you with the debut self-titled Eddie Money.
Oh, rest in peace, Eddie Money.
Rest in peace, Eddie Money. I love this dude's voice, and 2 Tickets to Paradise is one of my favorite songs in all of GTA San Andreas. Another reason that game fucking rules. But this is one of many artists that the game introduced me to, and this is a damn good soft rock record. It has its upbeat ones and some great love songs on it. But 2 Tickets to Paradise sells it already. But then you've got You've Really Got a Hold on Me, Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star, Baby Hold On. I think Baby Hold On was in Vice City Stories as well. So
that's a fucking great song.
Yeah, like this is a good album if you like some soft rock, yacht rock goodness. And I'm definitely one of those guys that, like, if I want something in the rock and roll vein, but it's kind of chill, this is the sort of stuff I go for. Like even 2 Tickets to Paradise has that massive chorus, but like it's also a really chill, vibey song at the same time. And I fucking love it.
It's rock and roll that won't make your parents too mad.
Yeah. So yeah, it just blah blah blah. Yeah, I like it.
What he said, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get subtitles on that part just so everyone can understand what's going on.
I was speaking my
unless especially except for the people in the podcast world. I'm not forgetting about you guys in the podcast world. I keep saying things like, here, look at my album cover, and let's get some subtitles going. I'm not trying to make you guys feel like you're not special and you're not wanted, because you are. So yeah, I gotta acknowledge the peeps that are listening to this and not watching it, because we're not like the best thing to look at in the world. So I kind of get it. It makes sense.
Don't sell us too short.
Okay. Well, I mean, I get you're kind of like the looks, and I'm the mouth, I guess. Fuck, I don't know, of the
Beard.
operation. I'm the beard. Yeah. All right. So my number four. The next three that I'm going to go through are all albums that, like, if anyone has listened to me talk for long enough, they're gonna be like, well, we knew those were going to be there. My number four is Love Gun by Kiss.
Yes.
Which was honestly the first full length, no, the second full length Kiss album I ever heard, because I heard Double Platinum was my introduction to Kiss, and then I heard Crazy Nights, or maybe it was the other way around. Either way, I heard Crazy Nights, but then I remember being at a used bookstore that also had records, and they had a copy of Love Gun, and I got it, and I was just like, God, this album is just fucking amazing. And we already talked about it. We did a 3-parter on Kiss also. For those of you who might be Kiss fans, go back and listen. Back when you could just listen with your watch with your ears. But this album is fucking great. It's probably the best sounding Kiss album from the 70s to me, like production wise.
Yeah.
But like fucking it's got Love Gun, Got Love for Sale, Almost Human, Shock Me, I Stole Your Love. Like it's got a whole lot of great shit on it. Plus the fucking album cover is just like I know a lot of people try to say like Destroyer is the iconic Kiss album cover, but for me, this is it. That's the iconic album cover.
Yeah.
And but yeah, and it's the last it is the last one with the original lineup of Kiss. I think after that, Peter Criss kind of starts getting replaced with other people.
Yeah.
Or no, he played a little bit on Dynasty. Whatever. This is not the Kiss ranking episode. I don't have all my facts straight. But anyway, Love Gun's great. It's just an amazing rock record. Love Gun is the kind of album that, well, there are several albums by Kiss from the 70s that, like, every time I hear it, I know that there are those people out there, that there's this bandwagon thing where people will say things like Kiss didn't know how to play their instruments, or they were just a manufactured band, and like, first of all, it's embarrassing for you if you say things like that, because it's just like, you might as well tell everybody that you know fuck all about rock and roll.
Yeah.
And so, but albums like Love Gun, I'm just like, there's just so much great shit on there, and it's so well performed and well produced, and it just sounds great. And it's, yeah, it's we talked about it a lot on that episode. I don't need to talk about it anymore. My number four, Love Gun from Kiss.
It's got to have one of the strongest album openers too. Like, I Stole Your Love is such a kick-ass way to like open up with. God damn.
Yeah.
So I guess that brings me over to my number
turn.
3.
Number 3, so man.
My number 3 is Rumors by Fleetwood Mac.
All right. I was wondering if this would show up here from you, because I did. We have never had a Fleetwood Mac discussion before, but I had a feeling.
Fleetwood Mac were a band that, like, I knew a shit ton of their hits. Similar situation to Lynyrd Skynyrd, so like they're a bit more of a recent deep dive for me.
Yeah,
but when I looked at the track listing of Rumors, I was like, this is like a greatest hits. This is a greatest hits situation. It's just so many classic songs are on this record, and this is a big this is a girlfriend album for me, because my girlfriend is big into Fleetwood Mac, and like Stevie Nicks is her like idol. So this has been played in the car. I can't even begin to think of the amount of times I have heard these songs in the car. There's so many classics on here, it's ridiculous. Where's the, I got the track list here, like Secondhand News, Dreams, Never Going Back, Don't Stop, Go Your Own Way, The Chain. Like
and even recently, isn't Dreams the song that ended up in that TikTok video that everybody watched where the guy was like skateboarding and had orange juice? Isn't it Dreams that he's listening to?
I think so. It was one of the songs off of here. I'm pretty sure it was Dreams, to be honest. Yeah. But like I always had like, whenever she says thunder only happens when it's raining, I'm like, I always chime in as that dickhead contrarian friend, like, actually it's technically not true. But yeah, it's good.
But it doesn't sound as poetic to say thunder only happens when there's a chance of rain.
Yeah.
That doesn't quite have the same ring to it, you know. You gotta let musicians and songwriters get away with some shit sometimes. That's why you can't really get mad at I brought it up before. Paul McCartney and Live and Let Die is in this ever-changing world in which we live in. And I'm just like, there's a lot of ins in that.
Yeah. It's like that thing from the NWA episode that we did where we're coming up with like really bad alternate song titles, and it was select members of the police department aren't very nice instead of just fuck the police.
Yeah. But you know, it's funny because Fleetwood Mac is a band that like their time is due for me, because I was never a fan, and then I don't know, several years back I remember just hearing something that Stevie Nicks was singing, and I'm all like, I think her voice finally clicked with me. Well, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it sounds good. I used to think it was kind of annoying sounding. And so it's been one of those things where I know that eventually that's going to be a thing where I go and, you know, get into rumors and what's their other really big one that everybody loves? Tusk. That's another one of theirs. So I'm glad this is on here, because that's a group that I definitely feel like I need to give a lot of attention to, at least their earlier output. I don't know what happened to the band. All I remember was that I saw Fleetwood Mac when I was in my early teens, and Stevie Nicks wasn't there. And they used to do a free festival in Austin called Freedom Fest. And it was just a bunch of music, and you just showed up, like you didn't pay anything. And so we went there, and that particular year, the two big groups. So this was like 1990, I want to say 94 or 95, maybe. The two big groups were Fleetwood Mac and REO Speedwagon. Like that was and Fleetwood Mac played, and I just remember like at one point, is Mick Fleetwood the drummer's name? Is that him, the drummer?
I think so, yeah.
He comes back, he comes around from the kit, and he has all these electronic drum pads all over his body, and he does a drum solo by hitting himself all over the body, and then he has one on his crotch, and whenever he grabs it, it goes like ah or something like that. So he does this whole drum solo with the drum pads all over him, and I was like, that's pretty fucking cool. But the rest, cool. but the rest of the show as a teenager, I'm all like, what is this old people's shit? They don't even like it. Even I was even into the REO Speedwagon thing, because I was, you know, once they kick into what's that song called, Take It on the Run, I'm all like, fucking A, man. Even as a young person, I'm like, that's a fucking great song. I don't care what anybody says. Anyway, Fleetwood Mac eventually is going to be a band that I'm gonna be giving some more love to. But so I'm glad they're here. You got anything else to add for Fleetwood Mac?
Nah.
All right. So cool. Got this. Now we're getting to the point where I think these three albums, I love them a lot. And I'm happy with the order I put them in. It makes perfect sense to me. But my number 3 is Draw the Line by Aerosmith.
Cool.
Which is one of the most underrated albums that they did in the 70s, because it doesn't have like the hits, that you would get on Toys in the Attic and Rocks. But there's a rawness and an energy to this that I feel like the only way that this could have happened is that this album had to have been made in a situation where the band members weren't getting along and some of them didn't even want to be there. Because the song Draw the Line itself is fucking great. But you also have Get It Up is a fucking great song. Kings and Queens is on here too. It's just such a fucking great album. And I think that a lot of people will, read about the album or see interviews with the band, and they will say like, it wasn't a very good time and we were on too many drugs, and and all of these different things about why the album isn't good, without really just listening to it and taking it out of that context and being like, I don't care. Like I don't know what combination of shit made this album, but it's one of my favorite Aerosmith because it just sounds like a rock band that's like too big to give a fuck anymore.
Yeah.
and they're too high, but they still came up with some cool shit. And I know that like some of the stuff, like Joe Perry isn't even on a couple tracks, I think. And then some of the lyrics were written by the producer because Steven Tyler was just like, I got other things to do, man. And but it still didn't stop them from putting out this fucking fantastic record. And to me, I said this before, there is no bad Aerosmith album. There are less good Aerosmith albums, I'll give you that. But Draw the Line is not one of them. It's a fucking corker of a rock album to me. It's like so yeah, but it's so we literally are in a territory where we have albums that in my mind are like, desert island albums. If I'm able to take 100 albums. That's the one thing. Whenever somebody says desert island, and I'm all like, on my desert island, can I have like a suit, like a huge trunk, like full of records? Because there's a whole lot that I'm all like, I don't want to leave that one behind. And Draw the Line and my next two are also in that category of albums. I'm just like, some fucking rules. So that's my number 3, Draw the Line.
Cool. So my number 2 is Love Gun.
See, this is the one that I knew that we would both have on the list.
Yeah,
I had a feeling.
We're both Kiss fans, and
true,
big ones at that. So this is classic Kiss doing what Kiss in the 70s knew how to do.
Oh yeah,
and that's play kick-ass hard rock to shag and be awesome too. And,
that is Gene Simmons. Take that and put it on every album and give a cut of money to Eddie Sparxx, because that is what needs to be on every Kiss reissue now. That sums up the band right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Shut your brain off rock and roll. There are so many great songs. I think this one does have some better than others, but goddamn, the ones that hit hard.
Yeah. Plus you get the first song sung by Ace Frehley with Shock Me.
Yeah. I love that. It's so good. I Stole Your Love, Shock Me, Tomorrow and Tonight, and Love Gun on the same disc. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This is kind of considered the last classic record before Kiss began to deviate massively from their core approach. But
if you listen to our ranking, you know that we're also both fans of Dynasty and beyond.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. And I know some people, I don't want to give too much away, but I love 80s Kiss too. So yeah, I got to the Love Zone very, very quick in our Kiss ranking, even though there's 20 something.
I think really, aside from Carnival of Souls and Psycho Circus, no, never mind. I talked shit about the more recent Kiss albums too. Once we got to the 90s and back, it was literally just an utter joy ranking their albums.
Yeah. And that's Kiss doing what Kiss did great in the 70s. So yeah, great kick-ass hard rock to shag and be awesome to.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. So this, I'm sure people out there might have thought that this was going to be my number one, but it is not my number one. It is my number two. A Farewell to Kings by Rush is I wore my Rush shirt today just for this occasion.
Nice.
This album does not, it's a gatefold. I haven't been showing off any of my gatefolds, but I mean, fuck it. The people in the podcast world are just like, what gatefold? Come on, dude, shut up. So this was a big album for Rush because they broke through with 2112. But I feel like this one is the one where like all of a sudden they had all these fans, but then they became like really, I think at this point they became rabid Rush fans. Like they were, this is because this album is like, everything on this album is great. Even if the single, the big single was Closer to the Heart, which is a classic 70s song at this point. Amazingly well-written song because it's deceptively, it's like, it seems simple, but if you really listen to the song, like how it's a song that's 2 minutes and 52 seconds, but it takes me on a fucking big ass journey. Like just the way the song, goes from the beginning to the end. I'm always just like, they did with two almost 3 minutes that most people can't manage to do with 10. And so, but then they also did stuff with 10 minutes with Cygnus X1. And Xanadu, which Xanadu is one of my favorite Rush songs, just because I feel like it's got all the best elements of Rush, because it's got the proggy elements. It's a long song. It's got some stuff that's kind of dorky, like the little keyboard. It's very dorky in a very cool way. But then it's got the riff. When the riff kicks in with the every time I hear that riff, I'm like, oh, it's so good. But yeah, this is just, it's like Rush is another band that don't have any bad albums in my opinion, and their 70s output, I mean even their 80s output, but like every single one of their albums has a quality to it that I'm just like, that I wouldn't take one out of the story. And this one is just great because it's still them pushing the prog, the boundaries where now they're doing, even longer songs, and they're incorporating different kinds of instruments. And they fucking, I think they went to like, is it England, somewhere in England to record this one? And there's even like sounds of just the fucking country where they're in the middle of the country, recording this album. It's funny that I'm talking so much about how much I love this, and this is nowhere near my favorite Rush album. It's a fucking incredible album, and I don't really know what else to add to it. Like this, eventually we'll get to the Rush ranking, and I'll really tear into these because they deserve it, and I just think that that A Farewell to Kings is awesome. And also Farewell to Kings is the album that currently Primus is touring and playing it in its entirety.
Wow.
Which I actually watched on YouTube. Somebody posted a full concert. Pretty good quality. That's why I love iPhones and things like that, because now I just go to YouTube and there's a perfectly good quality show that somebody has filmed. And it's great because Primus plays like almost like a greatest hits hour of their music. And then they play Farewell to Kings in its entirety. And it's fucking great. Aside from the fact that Les Claypool can't sing the Geddy Lee parts, but he does his best. Anyway, that's totally, I mean, I guess it's related because it's talking about the same album, but we're not on Primus. But my number two, Farewell to Kings from Rush, which didn't make my number one, but my number one is literally in my life and in my brain and in my world, blows all 9 of these albums out of the water. And so we'll get there eventually. So let's move on now with you. Oh, so you're at your number 1 now?
I am.
Wow, number 1. Let's see how this turns out. Let me get that's me rubbing my hands together.
This is ASMR.
Yeah. All right. What's your number 1 of 1977?
My number 1 of 1977 is Alive 2 by Kiss.
Oh, man, 2 live albums made it onto your list, but Alive 2.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. Much like Love Gun, this is classic Kiss doing what Kiss in the 70s knew how to do. And let's play kick-ass hard rock to shag and be awesome to on stage where they fucking belong.
And bonus, you get some studio tracks like the fucking fantastic Rocket Ride from Mr. Elvis Frehley. Yeah.
So good. And like the track list consists of songs from the albums Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over, and Love Gun. And this makes for a killer listen.
Hell yeah.
Like most of the track list consists of a live show recorded at a concert at the Forum in LA, while the last 5 tracks, I think 3 of them are like live at the Capitol Theater in New Jersey, and a couple of studio tracks. But oh man, this album, it really is. It's the same as Alice Cooper. Really, their songs translate so well live. I think production wise, Kiss fared a little better in the studio album department, but god damn,
so, some of them, if you talk about Hotter Than Hell, that one, definitely.
You have a point. In a way, that album has its own charm because it's kind of weird and murky. For a Kiss album, but I love this album. It's just kick-ass song after kick-ass song, and it really Kiss is one of those bands where it's like you gotta see them live, dude. Even though like they're on their final actual farewell tour now, aren't they? Yeah,
I did air quotes. I mean, we'll see. I mean, if they actually stick to it and retire, that's that's up to them. I don't really care. People like to make a big deal of that. They said it was going to be a farewell tour, and then they got back together. I'm like, whatever. They're adults.
Yeah,
they made their decision to come back. Whatever. Don't go see them. Simple as that.
Damn, like I love Kiss. I love Kiss, man. They're just so fucking good.
I do too. Kiss is amazing.
That is my number 1. Alive.
Awesome. That's an interesting number 1. So I hyped up my number 1, and I'm not fucking kidding. Obviously, these are our favorites. So this is an album that I think it probably draws a good line down the middle of 50% of people will be like, that album's bullshit. And then the other 50% of people may be more on my side of things. But to me, like, this is one of my favorite albums ever made, an absolute desert island album for me. It's an album that was made in 1 year before I was born, but you put this fucking thing on and you crank it up and it gives me goosebumps. It gives me an adrenaline rush like few albums do. And I'm just going to go ahead and never mind the bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols.
Knew it.
This album is like, I just want to applaud the fucking the world that this, whatever made this happen. I don't care. Like, that's it's the same thing with like that people say about Kiss. Like clearly Sex Pistols in a way were manufactured by Malcolm McLaren. He had an idea for this band, and so they were like a punk boy band, I guess. But but whatever it is, like that, the combination of people that were put together, and when I say people, I'm not really ever referring to Sid Vicious, because to be fair, he has very little to do with the Sex Pistols. He has a lot to do with Sid Vicious. But because he's on, I think he plays on one song on this album.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the majority of the bass, if I remember right, is played by Steve Jones, and some of it played by their original bass player Glenn Matlock, who years later, when they like reformed, Glenn Matlock, the original bass player, was the bass player. But the needle goes down on the fucking thing, and Holidays in the Sun starts. The riff of that song is just so.
Yeah.
And the way that it's recorded, it sounds so good here. And that's one of the weird things about it, is that it's like it's a punk album, but like it sounds really good. It doesn't sound underproduced. It's obviously it's a major label album. It ended up coming out on like Virgin Records overseas, and Warner Brothers over here. But just every single song on here to me is just, it never lets up to me. It's always a joy listening to this album. And I don't really even care about like the punk aspect of it, like their story is really interesting to me. And I love everything that went on, the hype around the band, and the great rock and roll swindle, with them getting signed to labels and then getting paid to leave labels and shit like that, just because they were complete jerk offs. But to me, like that's like I kind of miss that in rock and roll. I don't want every band to be like that, but I want there to be more actual like dangerous rock stars. It seems like all the dangerous people are now hip hop stars. They're, and even then it's kind of a calculated dangerous. But at the same time, it has to walk that fine line, because in this day and age, if a band wants to be like edgy, they're just gonna, be complete douchebags, which I guess you could say that maybe the Sex Pistols were douchebags. I don't fucking know. But really, if you look at it, like all they did was like they cussed on live TV a couple times, but none of it is like, I mean, they said the word fuck a couple times. My favorite one from that, because I love the I don't know what show it is that they're on, where they're being interviewed by the guy.
Yeah.
And why can't I remember anybody? Okay. Johnny Rotten. Woo! Johnny Rotten under his breath says, tough shit.
Yeah.
And then the presenter is all like, well, what did you say? And then eventually Steve Jones, and that's when it escalates, because Steve Jones just like, you dirty fucker.
Yeah.
And then my favorite one is a thing that like it's only a phrase in England, and I love it so, and I don't think people say it enough anymore, is he goes, what a fucking raw.
Yeah.
And every time I hear that, I'm like, God, that's so great. I wish that was still a thing that people said. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. So the Nevermind the Bollocks is to me is an amazing album. But you have to agree, don't you hear some people that consider this like a shit album? Like,
I mean, any album that gets critical acclaim is going to have its naysayers. You're always going to have people hop on the thing of like for me, I like the album. Mm-hmm. I think I think I just need to get more into punk, to be honest. But looking at all of the ratings of it on here, like if you go to the wiki page, you go down to the retrospective professional ratings, the review scores, they are all 5-star, A, 10 out of 10. I think the lowest is 8 out of 10 from Uncut. Mm-hmm. And like the rest of them are just perfect scores. So you're always going to have people shitting on something because it's popular, and you're always going to have your purists of like, anything that gets successful is immediately null and void, sell out, fucking, or whatever shit that is. But it's an influential record that has stood the test of time because people are still being influenced by it.
And you could say that it's also an album that created and killed a genre all in one fail swoop.
Yeah.
Because eventually, very quickly, punk became that thing where you would see people in the punk costume. They had safety pins on their shit. They, it became like a joke really quick.
Yeah.
And you can easily blame it on the Sex Pistols for that, because there are other bands that are considered punk around the time. I mean, Ramones being a big one, that had a completely different thing going on. They were leather jackets and blue jeans kind of guys. But to me, like that, the Ramones to me has always just been like rock music. Like when somebody says the word punk to me, there has to be a certain we don't give a fuck kind of raw attitude along with it. Like it can't just be a sound, or you decide that you're gonna sing with a snarly kind of vocal. That doesn't make it punk just because you do that. It's something that almost is intangible to me, where you can't. It has to be the universe has to line up in the correct way, and all of these things have to be done in this way that's just pure chaos. And to me, I'm just like, that seems like punk to me. But then later on down the line, punk becomes, Green Day and things like that. And I can't shit on those bands because they're good bands. But at the same time, you take a band like Green Day and they, you see that footage of like Billy Joe having a meltdown on stage, and I'm all like, all right, there you go. Yeah. You're earning your punk cred there, buddy. Because it's like, that's those are the kind of things that I miss. Like I want there to be some chaos in my rock and roll. Anyway, I've talked about that one enough, but I feel like I need to give it a lot of love, because we can't do a Sex Pistols album ranking because we just did it. The number one Sex Pistols album is the only Sex Pistols album. Although you can make the argument that it's funny because when it came out at the same time, there was a bootleg version of it that came out at the exact same time called Spunk.
Yeah.
And that's got songs that aren't on here. I think it's got 2 songs that aren't on here. I don't know. But yeah. And then later on, like the remaining Pistols without Johnny Rotten put out the great Rock and Roll Swindle, which was, a big Malcolm McLaren thing. But this is it. Number one, there you go. Not only did you got a Cranked and Ranked, you got a Bands You Should Know with Detective, and you got another Cranked and Ranked that I did of the Sex Pistols, the number one Sex Pistols album and my number one album in 1977. Never mind the box. Here's the Sex Pistols. So, yeah, we did it. You're welcome, everybody. How do you feel about this one, about 1977?
Yeah, you asking me?
Yeah. You're the only motherfucker I'm talking to right now.
I thought this was for the viewer. that was a Steve Brule reference. Fun year of the live album for me.
Yeah, and the year of Kiss too for you.
Yes, indeed. Though I could say that about 76 as well, though, because I put both 76 Kiss albums on that one too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I put Rock and Roll and Destroyer on the same.
Oh, so here I am hyping up the first ever double on an episode, and it's already happened in an old episode.
Well, it was I think it was your first double, so you can still hold on to that.
Yeah, but, it was something, whatever.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, then that wraps it up for 1977. We'll be coming back next time with another actual group album. Nope. Artist album ranking, band album ranking. Yes. Not a year. Back to our regular scheduled programming. So yeah. Yeah. 70s. Yeah. Now let's throw it on over to Dave with the weather. And anyway.
It rains all morning and it clears up afternoon.
That was Dell with the weather.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So that's all we got for this episode of Cranked and Ranked. Thank you all, podcast listeners. Thank you for listening. YouTube viewers, thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Also go subscribe to Eddie Sparxx's channel. If you look in the description of this video, I always have a link to his page. Go over there and give him some love also. And then comment, what are your top 10 albums of 1977? And feel free to throw in your 2 cents about what we picked if you want, I guess. I mean, I read them. I read the comments. I mean, so that's part of why we do this, the interaction between us and you lovely people at home. But that's it for this episode of Cranked and Ranked. And as usual, I'm gonna brace myself and hand it on over to Mr. Eddie Sparxxx to take us out.
Oh, this is the part where I usually say a thing. What was it? It's been a couple weeks.
I think it's like goodbye peeps or something like that.
Oh, it's ringing a bell. Like it's just I'm racking my brain here, dude.
Maybe it was till next time, fellas.
I'm sure it involved dude. I'm piecing it.
I think you're onto something. I think you're onto something there.
Sup, dude? Welcome to Cranked and Ranked.
Hey, the circle begins again. Welcome to 1977. Let's talk about our number 10 album of 1977. All right, here we go. Eddie Sparxxx.
My number 10 is Sin After Sin by Judas Priest.
I feel like we've been here before.
We're just Groundhog Daying our own episode.
Ned Ryerson. All right. All right, let's try this. No, let's try this again properly. And take us out.
Oh shit.
Oh, I love it. I wonder if the people that actually watch the whole episode, they're all like their fingers on the mouse button or whatever to be like, and we're just you can just click out now. No reason to finish this up. Let's try it again. Ready?
1 foot in the gutter, 1 fist in the gold.
Yeah. That's a good one too. All right.
Right on. Later, dude.